Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning, Economic Development and Housing Committee Council hybrid meeting this evening. Today is Wednesday, March 6th. And the committee members, our co-chair, Councilman John Gale. We have also Councilman Melcar Hernandez with us. And going hybrid, we have the Majority Leader, Marilyn Rossetti, and I'm not quite sure if I see anyone else from the council members who are members of the committee. So we have a quorum. This is great. So anyone watching the meeting can watch the meeting on our Hartford Public Access Television Station, Channel 96 on Comcast, and Channel 6032 on Frontier. I am calling the meeting to order. Again, today is Wednesday, March 26th. We have a couple of items on the agenda. The first item on the agenda, item 2.1, is a accompanying resolution from Mayor Arulampalam confirming the appointment of Chance Carter to the Planning Zoning Commission. And I believe Mr. Carter is with us. Hybrid? Okay. I see a smiley face.
Good evening, Madam Council President. Thank you for having me.
Good evening, Mr. Carter, and welcome to joining us. And could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Why do you want to be in the Planning and Zoning Commission? And then after that, we can open the floor for questions from the other council members.
Sure thing. Thank you. My name is Chance Carter, and I am a lifetime Hartford resident. I live in the Blue Hills neighborhood. I am currently employed at the Johns Hopkins University as a senior researcher at the Bloomberg Center for Government Excellence, where I work with cities across the globe on improving data practices to help make more data-driven decisions that actually help residents. I also am serving on the Connecticut Siting Council, which works as a sort of statewide planning and zoning board, specifically around the siting and construction of telecommunications and utilities across the state. I also am serving on the Connecticut Public Transportation Council, where I help to advocate for the residents of Hartford and Greater Hartford to improve mass transit across the state. I have always been drawn to try to help out with public service. It's something that's very important to me, especially as we see the city starting to grow and starting to change. I would like to be able to help guide those decisions and also provide a different perspective to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I've had the opportunity to meet a few of the commissioners who have been very gracious, but it will be nice to get some diversity on the commission, not just in terms of color, but also in terms of age and also in terms of location. So I hope to help to serve the residents of Hartford on this commission, and I look forward to any questions. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Chance. Wow. I said you certainly been volunteering all over the state. Keep doing so. Thank you. Any questions from the council members? Seeing, nope.
I have, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Majority Leader Rossetti. I didn't see her.
Thank you. That's okay. Mr. Carter, I have to do what I always do, and my colleagues are gonna go, oh, here she goes again. I always like to thank people who want to take their time and all the other things you do to give back to the city, obviously, that you love as much as we love. So, you know, I always want to take the chance, I'm looking at your name, the time to say that. I do have to say, I want to be honest with you, Mr. Carter. I did a little deep dive. I always like to look at what people did. Did you ever see the article about you when you were 7 years old?
I actually have it here in my house back when I got interviewed for being Student of the Week.
You wanted to be a meteorologist.
Yeah, and then I realized I was afraid of thunderstorms and being sent out in them. So now I'm doing research.
But I just thought, isn't this fantastic? Here's this kid, you know, and now we're going to be interviewing him to be on a commission. So I applaud you and thank you very much. That's all, Madam President.
Thank you, Majority Leader Rossetti. Councilman Melcar.
Good evening, Chance. Thank you. Like Councilwoman Rossetti mentioned, it's great to see folks volunteering, and this is a 4-year term, so this is a big step. So thank you for that. I do just have a quick question. Can you, since you have spoken to other commissioners, so far, I'm sure you have spoken about what are you guys doing, things that are kind of like in the pipeline right now. Do you have any idea of like 1 or 2 things that you've been thinking about that you want to bring to the table, that based on your expertise and your experience, that you think will be an additional value to the commission, that you think that you're kind of like, this is the one thing that I really want to focus on?
So the thing that I'm really focused on mainly is around transit and transit-oriented development, and I think that Hartford has a lot of opportunities around transit-oriented development, especially with the Hartford line and the hopeful expansion of service, and as well as CT Fast Track. I think that being able to leverage the expertise that I'm able to gain from my colleagues at Hopkins and also working with cities across the globe, it will be great to identify best practices that happen and try to apply them here in Hartford. I think the work that the commission has been doing so far has been great. The new city plan that's in place is wonderful. The fact that parking minimums have been removed is something I think is really crucial to having a more walkable, livable city for all residents. So that's mainly what I'm looking forward to, is helping shape the growth of the city towards something that's more sustainable for everyone. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Chase.
Thank you, Mr. Chance. I believe Councilwoman Rosado has joined us, and she is also a voting member of the committee. Councilman Gale, any questions?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carter, again, as others have said, for stepping up and volunteering your services. I'm intrigued by the fact that you live here in Hartford but work for Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. So anybody can apparently live anywhere and work somewhere else these days, and you're a testament to it.
Yes, I'm very grateful to be able to be fully remote working for Hopkins. So I did attend college down in Baltimore at the University of Baltimore. So I did spend some time away from the city, but I've been able to work remotely, which is one of the weird things since we're in this post-pandemic, semi-post-pandemic life. But it's allowed me to better serve in a volunteer capacity across the state, so I'm grateful for it.
Well, good for you, and good for Hartford. We get to keep you, even though Baltimore gets some of your talents, but it sounds like we're going to start to get some of your talents as well. I love the fact that you talked about a more walkable, livable city and transit-oriented development. These are issues that are certainly near and dear to my heart, and I think to most of the council, and to the development, the future of the city of Hartford. They're key issues. So kudos to you on that. Know that to the extent it ever becomes important for you or any other members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, we're always here. And should you feel that something is needed on the council side to assist you folks over at Planning and Zoning, don't ever hesitate to ask. While you have control of your own regulations, we have control of everything else. So, let us know. So, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Mr. Co-Chair. You should say Madam Co-Chair.
Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chance. Again, I'm with all the council members here. We just applaud, our Hartford residents who are stepping up and want to serve in the capacity of boards and commission to help the residents of the city. The zoning commission, I believe, touches all aspects of everyone's lives in the city of Hartford, which a lot of people don't really understand how important it is. If you build a porch, or how far back you build a porch, it really is important, and so diversity of that department or that commission is extremely important. because you live in the community. You see, what the residents are speaking on and what their issues are, and how the zoning commission, again, if you want to take a fence down, you want to build a fence. That's how personal this commission actually touches the residents and businesses in this community. So, I'm hoping that your volunteerism for one more commission and board, won't take you away from the siding commission or the other telecommunication boards that you have joined. But Councilman Gale is correct in saying that the city is a very small 18 square mile of city, and it's a walkable city. You can walk from one end to the city, in an hour, if you walk really good enough or fast enough. But this is how really smaller city is, and a lot of people may not believe that, there's different parts of the city don't communicate with each other, but we really do. We've got family members and friends living in all sectors of our community. So your advocacy on the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to be extremely valuable to the residents of the city. So I applaud you, I commend you, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for volunteering. As a member of this committee, I've always periodically go to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Those are some long meetings. I'm being honest with you. Councilman Gill can testify to it because he's in that sector. And so I thank you and I commend you for wanting to do this because it's really needed. People have been sitting on this commission for a long time and they really need some energy, some new energy. So I think that's what you're going to bring to the table. So thank you so very much for doing so. I'm not sure if Councilwoman Rosado is still here, if she's got any comments or questions for you. She's gone? Okay. She may just have some technical difficulties, even though she's a member of the committee. Okay. Well, if seeing it, any more questions for Mr. Chance? Seeing or hear no more questions, is there opening for a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion, Madam Co-Chair,
Thank you.
that we send the appointment of Chance Carter to Planning and Zoning Commission back to the full City Council with a favorable recommendation from this committee.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second to send the Mr. Chance appointment for the Planning and Zoning Commission favorably to the full council. Any questions, any discussions? Seeing and hearing discussions, may we have a vote on this motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. I believe all the ayes have it. Mr. Chance, congratulations. Thank you again, and looking forward to seeing you in some of these commission meetings. And again, thank you so very much. And our next council meeting will be March the 11th, and then you'll be fully on board as soon as possible. I think so, right? No?
This is occurring too late to
Oh,
make
that's
it
right.
to Monday's agenda unless, if it was
Right.
important, we could discharge it.
Okay. We'll talk about that because our agenda deadline is normally about midday. And I do know the Planning and Zoning Commission is desperately in need of people right now. So let us talk to the administration and see if it's something, the council members want to do and approve on Monday. But someone will get back with you on them. But anyway, congratulations. And again, thank you so very much for joining us. And please to stay on and listen to the committee meetings. I think you'll find we have a presentation from the Fair Rent Commission, and we have a presentation from the Riverfront Recapture, which I think you will find very interesting, especially, being on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you, Madam Council President, and thank you to the members of the committee.
Great, congratulations again. Thank you, sir.
I think we would have to suspend the rule.
Okay. Second item on the agenda, item 2.2, It's a resolution from Councilwoman Molly Rosado, Councilman John Gale, Councilman Amilcar Hernandez, and Councilman Josh Mitchum. It's a resolution calling for more electrical vehicle charging station in Hartford. To the members of the committee, Paul Drummond, who would have come and would like to have done a testimony on this resolution, is unfortunately won't be able to make it due to a conflict in his schedule. So I would like a motion to postpone this item until our next council meeting.
Happy to make that motion, Madam Co-Chair, to postpone this. It is an issue that's certainly coming to the forefront these days as more and more electric vehicles are hitting our roads, and I can attest personally, as somebody who now has an electric vehicle in their household, just how important it is to be able to find a charging station when you need one.
Okay.
So I will be certainly paying personal attention to this issue, but it it does bespeak of the of the future and our ability to face it in a more carbon neutral manner. So anyway, motion to postpone.
Second.
Thank you. A motion is made and properly second to postpone. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Those in favor of postponing the item to the next council meeting?
Aye.
All right, great. The ayes have it. Thank you. This item will be postponed until our next council meeting, where Mr. Drummond will be able to come and give us and educate us knowledgeable on this charging station item. The next item on the agenda is item 2.3, and that is a resolution by Councilwoman Molly Rosado, Councilman Amilcar Hernandez, a resolution to request an update from the Fair Housing Commission. Do we have anyone from the administration to speak on this item?
Hello, committee. That is me. My name is Matt Straub. I'm the city's housing director, and I'm prepared to give a brief presentation on the Fair Rent Commission. First off, as an EV driver myself, I'm very excited about the potential for more electric vehicle chargers. So that has my wholehearted support. I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. I did prepare a brief slide deck today, so if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen.
Sure.
Okay, and everyone can see? Hopefully the font is big enough.
Yes, we can.
Great. So I have a brief slide presentation. I've got 7 slides today. So first off, just starting with, what does the Fair Rent Commission do? So the Fair Rent Commission provides information to landlords and tenants regarding individual rights and responsibilities as far as rent. And then we additionally receive complaints from tenants about rent charges that seem harsh or unconscionable. So that's actual statutory language. It is not just when a renter's or a tenant's rent is increased, but it is actually for kind of the life cycle of the lease period. So it can be related to specifically a potential rent increase. It could also be regarding a change in what's included in your lease. So whether that includes whether heat or hot water was previously included and the landlord wishes to remove that from the rent, or if you have communal utilities that are now being separated from the rent, that can be brought to the Fair Rent Commission. Additionally, the Fair Rent Commission can be utilized to address housing code compliance or standards issues. So whether there have been housing code violations that have not been addressed after the tenant has brought that to the landlord's attention, or if the tenant believes they're paying an unfair rent based on the condition of their unit, those are also items that can be considered by the Fair Rent Commission. And that's one of the areas that we are seeing a substantial increase in the number of complaints we receive, particularly related to nonprofit partners like the Connecticut Fair Housing Center, or around certain complaints through community organizers or tenant unions as they look to address housing condition issues. So to give an idea of the process, we accept complaints by pretty much all of the ways in which we communicate in our modern age. So we accept complaints by phone, mail, email, fax. We have a preference for appointments for in-person visits, just so we can be sure that people are at their desk and are not in meetings, but otherwise we are trying to be as flexible as we can. Because of the volume of complaints we receive, and this is standard across fair rent commissions as I understand it across the state, staff will first seek to mediate a complaint internally before something is considered by the fair rent commission itself. So if it cannot be mediated, it will be added to the monthly agenda. The way that the things that the commission can do when they're considering a fair rent complaint, they can either agree that the rent or the rent increase is fair and order the tenant to pay the amount, or if they do not agree that the increase is fair, they have a number of different mechanisms at their disposal. So they can either lower the rent immediately. They can decide that the rent increase can be phased in gradually over the course of months or years. They can delay the rent increase for a defined amount of time, or they can address, so if there's an issue with a housing condition, they can adjust downward the existing rent all the way down to $1 if that's what's determined to be acceptable and feasible. So to give you an idea of our complaint volume, so I tried to put a lot of data on this chart, and it may not be immediately clear. So just to walk through it with everybody, the dark blue line is the number of complaints that we receive in a given month, dating back to January of 2020. The blue column, so we have stacked columns that are both blue and yellow. The blue are the number of claims that were heard by the Fair Rent Commission from that month. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they were heard in that month, but to give an example, the easiest one to see, I think, is September of 2022, where we received just over 40 complaints. I believe 12 of those were heard of that month, and the remainder were either dismissed or mediated. And then the red line indicates any claims that are currently open. There are a few claims for which that have been considered by the commission and then have the potential or have a request for reconsideration. My understanding is that currently we are considering fair rent complaints at the commission level dating back to October of 2023 because there is a statutory limitation on potential claims of, I'm sorry, this word is not coming to me, of retaliation. For 6 months, we do seek to have all claims addressed within 6 months. And then to take this and simplify it for you just a little bit, this is to give you an idea of our complaint volume. We have received an increase of over 600% since FY 2021, an increase in the amount of fair rent complaints that we received. Through February of this year, we're just short of 100. I anticipate that we're probably going to be around 150 for the year, which again represents a pretty substantial increase from our, I believe, 133 in FY23. So the commission itself consists of 5 members. There are 2 tenant members, 2 landlord members, and then a 5th ad hoc. I believe the 5th member is a non-landlord homeowner currently. In order for us to have a quorum, we, in addition to having a majority of the commission, so 3 members, we also have to have at least 1 tenant and at least 1 landlord present. Currently, we have 4 members, so we have 2 landlords, 1 tenant, and the ad hoc member. We have submitted an application for a 5th tenant member, and that's currently under consideration by the mayor. That all said, in the past year, we have not had to skip a meeting for lack of quorum. There was 1 meeting, the December 2023 meeting, that was delayed until January 4th, 2024, so that we could reach quorum. The tenant member was not able to attend, and we still held the regularly scheduled January meeting that same month. As for staffing, the Fair Rent Commission is staffed by a portion of 1 person's time. Her time is split with Section 8 administration. The Housing Division manages our Section 8 contracts through Imagineers, and that does require a substantial amount of administrative overhead as it relates to billing and disbursements. So what came to my attention that members of council had indicated that New Haven is an example of a fair rent commission that it believes is operated well. So I did reach out to Wildelise Bermudez, who is the executive director of the New Haven Fair Rent Commission, just to get an idea of how they're able to manage their volume. So the New Haven Fair Rent Commission is staffed by 2 dedicated members, an executive director and a field representative. they also have the support of additional graduate level interns. So the interns are handling some kind of lower level administrative work, as well as some of the community outreach regarding forums and workshops about letting people know about their rights. And then they have additionally budgeted for their FY 2025 budget a potential part-time third person who is again dedicated just to fair rent. So they received 287 complaints. When they hold meetings, seek to have no more than 4 fair rent complaints considered by their whole commission in the interest of not having 6-hour meetings. And these are difficult conversations to have. They are mentally taxing, and I can certainly understand not wanting to have volunteers have regular long meetings regarding fair rent complaints. So for our purposes, recommendations that I think would help us better administer the volume of fair rent complaints, both that we're currently receiving, and potentially we could be seeing a further increase in complaints as people become more aware of their rights under Connecticut's fair rent statutes, and tenant organizing and tenant activism continues to grow. I do believe that we would be well served by reallocating the existing senior project manager's time to handling just fair rent complaints. We are a leanly staffed division, and Diana's time is spread thin between multiple tasks, as well as providing an additional staff person to help with some of the field work. So New Haven, when they have the field person, they can go out to the tenants unit and look at specifically what it is that they're dealing with as far as condition issues. We, in trying to keep things lean and as simple as possible, frequently ask tenants to send us pictures. Additionally, and this is something that we have already budgeted for next year, is to send the existing senior project manager to a mediation training. So Quinnipiac University offers a 40-hour mediation training because fair rent commissions really are well served to the extent they can by trying to mediate some of these complaints before they reach the commission level. Having Diana have that training, I think, will really improve our efficiency and efficacy as we look to mediate some of these complaints. And then when we have the capacity for oversight, I would like to be able to bring in a graduate level intern, potentially in the fall semester. That is something that requires both curriculum development and a closer relationship, potentially with something like the UConn School of Social Work, for us to be able to bring in somebody who really knows fair rent law and can connect with residents to be able to teach them more about those rights. So I'm going to turn off screen sharing. I'd be happy to answer questions to the extent I can, or otherwise I'd be happy to send over information after the meeting.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Straub. I think there's going to be lots of questions for you. One of the council members would have loved to, including myself, would have loved the presentation in advance. And going forward, hopefully we see the administration in person. We're going back to being here in the council chambers again, and we love having company. So next committee meeting, we hope to see you guys here.
Sure, I got a Zoom link. I thought we were all on Zoom. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No, this is a new term,
Hey,
and we're.
Council President,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Straub needs to get out of his screen. Now we have his
Here you
email.
go. Mr. Straub.
Oh, sorry, that's just my
I don't
calendar.
want to see your schedule anymore, Mr. Straub.
I don't want to see his schedule.
I don't want you to see my schedule.
We know you're busy, but you don't have to show off, okay?
I thought I'd be better at that by now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. So for a question, Councilman Hernandez had his hands up. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Straub. I have, let me ask you a clarifying question. I think the acoustics here didn't allow me to hear some of the things that you mentioned, so pardon me if I am asking something that you probably did mention already. Can you remind me again on the graph, what does the blue versus the yellow means?
Sure. And would you like me just to pull up the screen again?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So as we're looking at the graph that's here, The blue line represents the number of complaints that we received in the given month. The blue column represents the number of complaints from that month that were heard by the whole en bloc commission. And then the yellow column on top of that represents the number of complaints that were either mediated before going to the commission or were dismissed. So the total of the blue and yellow generally should equal the blue line.
Okay, so, well, I mean, obviously, we're all kind of looking at that September 2022 because it's the outlier here, and it helped me kind of understand, you know, the up and downs. So, okay, so the combination of the blue and yellow is a total of complaints received, and
Correct.
then the blue, the ones that were directed to the commission for their response or for them to attend to, and the yellow ones didn't make it that far because they were mediated or dismissed prior to getting to the commission, right?
Correct. Those were handled at the staff level.
Okay, so from one month to another, does the commission have carryover complaints that go from one month to another because during that month they were not either responded by the commission or mediated or dismissed?
Generally, no. So what may happen is that if one or both parties can't make a meeting, it could be deferred to a following meeting. But generally speaking, I don't believe that something would be considered, you know, would be considered at the March meeting and then reconsidered at the April meeting. So I believe they're only getting kind of one consideration.
Okay. I have two more questions. So the first one is under what? Give me one or two examples of when a complaint is dismissed. What is the protocol that the commission or whoever is kind of reviewing these uses to determine that this complaint should be dismissed? And what is the communication method to let know the tenant or the person that put the complaint to know the result of that complaint?
So the resulting dismissal of the complaint would be both verbally and I believe also in writing from Diana. As far as the a specific example, I don't have one prepared for you. I'd be happy to have Diana prepare something and send it to the whole subcommittee tomorrow.
I only ask because I do see that in most months, yellow seems to be more than the blue. So, I mean, I'm not making the assumption that most of them were dismissed.
Right.
Some of them were probably mediated, like as you mentioned. And it would be good to know the difference between one and the other.
That's correct. And, you know, for examples where someone maybe can't afford their rent, but the rent is not inherently unfair, I think that's probably the clearest example I could give of something that would be dismissed.
Okay. And my last question is on your recommendations. You ask, or you're basically saying that the senior project manager, I'm going from the top of my head because I can't see the slide anymore. The senior project manager his or her time should be exclusively for the fair rent commission or complaints. Can you tell me how many hours currently that position it's allocated for that particular division, the fair rent?
Sure. So her time that's allocated to fair rent is probably about 60%. And I think she's actually been spending more time than 60% on fair rent activities.
You said 60, 60.
60. Yes.
Okay, so more than half of the time, so about 24 hours a week for the fair rent portion of it.
That's, I believe, what she's roughly allocated for. Those 60% is not how she's been spending her time.
Okay.
She has been spending more time than that.
Sure. So then my last statement will be, is your recommendation that 100% of the time of that position be exclusively for the fair rent? What's the downside of that? Like the other 40% that was supposed to be dedicated to some other projects, who will take on that? Like what happens to that other 40%?
Well, there is no other existing capacity to absorb that. So ultimately what is required is, and some of that work, frankly, doesn't need to be handled by someone at her level. Some of that work is maybe more administrative in level than would be necessary for a senior project manager to handle. So if we had an additional lower level person to manage some of that activity, it would free her time to handle the fair.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hernandez. Councilman Rosado, see your hands up?
Thank you, Council
Okay,
President.
there you go.
Thank you. I apologize from before, my camera was not working. So my question is actually, through you, Madam President, is going to go to Randall, because I know that Mr. Straub, came on board, with the new administration, but when I went into the website, and the reason why I put this resolution through was because I've been getting a lot of calls from residents, from the city of Hartford. When I did my research online, Mr. Davis, I saw that the last meeting, which looked at 5 cases, was back in October 17th, 2023. Now, I don't know if the website hasn't been updated, but if I look at the graphic that Mr. Straub had on there for, the blue and the yellow, tends to tell me that, or correct me if I'm wrong, that you met, or that those were complaints received. And my other question, I have a lot of questions, but my other question is, what does our backlog look like right now? Because as Councilman Hernandez stated, we saw an increase in September, because that was really when the tenant unions were every time at City of Hartford, promoting, put in a complaint with the Fair Housing Rent Commission. So could you enlighten us with?
Well, let me start. I'm going to defer some of this to Matt, just because he is on the ground for some of the specificity that you asked. So let me start by saying the way that he explained, the way that what the graph is showing is the complaints that came in that month, and whether they were adjudicated or whether they were determined to be either they, as he explained earlier, they were, I'm losing my words to you tonight, but that they weren't substantiated, or the example he used where someone actually couldn't afford the rent, but the rent was reasonable. So in terms of where we are for a backlog today, I would have to refer back to Matt to figure out, because that's one of the ongoing conversations we're having, to figure out where we are today. So, because I don't want to give you incorrect information.
Okay, because when I look at what's posted in the City of Hartford, from October 17th, 2023, only 5 cases were heard. 1 case went back to December 8th, 2021, March 16th, 2023, March 4th, April 28th, and May 5th of 2023. So that tells me that the backlog from September has still not been in front of the commission.
So a couple of things, because you talked about the history. There were times during 2023 when there were not enough commissioners, and therefore, so that there was a challenge in having the meetings on a regular basis. That definitely happened. I know that we began to try to address that with the prior director, in earnest, probably around March or April of 2023, to make sure that there were enough people there so that they could be heard on a regular basis. But you were asking about backlogs from September of 2023. I want to make sure I understood your question, because I don't have the graph in front of me. I apologize.
Right. So based on, and I didn't see the graph. I just
The website might not be updated.
Right. I just took a quick glance. And even if the website wasn't updated, in October of 2023, we were still looking at cases from 2021. So that tells me that, perhaps we have a big backlog. Do we know how many cases we have pending to go in front of the commission, and when is the next meeting going to take place? Because, we have to understand, right, that the residents of the city put in these complaints in, but they don't know, what's going on internally. So
Correct.
Sure. So to answer both questions, I can't speak to what happened before January 2nd, 2024 when I started. I can say that the commission meets on the third Thursday of every month and has met twice in my tenure. I attended one of those meetings on January 18th. So we currently have 69 cases.
Okay. And through Madam Chair, and then I'm gonna hand it off. I have so many questions. I might just put them in an email and send them to you, Mr. Stroud. But are there specific, is there a specific number of cases that you take on per meeting?
Generally speaking, we try to schedule between 5 and 7, with the idea that potentially not all of those will be able to be on that agenda. Any more than that, I think, is an unreasonable number for a volunteer commission to handle in one meeting. When I spoke with Wildesley's in New Haven, they will schedule no more than 4 per meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rosado. Councilman, what did I say? Co-chair, Councilman Gale.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Straub, could you put that graph back up?
Sure.
Okay, thanks very much. So, yeah, it's better smaller, actually, just because on our screen the newest data gets cut off. The red line, I believe is what you said, are the number of open cases, is that correct?
So those are the open cases from that period, yes.
Okay, so I guess it's a little concerning that this is a 3-year plus graph, and if I'm reading this, there were like no open cases from that period until quite recently, but now we've got, all right, I see. So that would make sense. These are the newest cases that are filed, and so cases filed in October, November, December, they're still open. Is that the idea?
They're still open, and you can really kind of start tying this when we started receiving an increase in complaints in May, June of 2022 is kind of when we started seeing a sustained increase in complaint volume.
But if I'm looking at your graph, you're telling me there's no open complaints from September of 2022.
No, those complaints have all been addressed, but that's when you start seeing that we have a longer period for us to address complaints, because if you look from before that time period where we were receiving 5 or fewer complaints per month, it was easier to address 5 or fewer complaints per month with the existing staff level we have. But if now we are receiving a sustained 10 plus number of complaints per month without a commensurate change in staffing level, because most of these complaints can and should be addressed prior to reaching the commission, that's kind of why we are starting to see that there is a longer backlog of complaints. Like, ideally speaking, we wouldn't be looking at open complaints still from summer of 2023. I would hope to, that August would have been fully addressed by then. But unfortunately, that's just kind of where we are as far as what the capacity is.
Okay, understood. Do you have an absolute number? I mean, I guess from this graph you could figure out exactly how many cases were filed in 2023?
Yes, that's actually what the next page had. So this is, I didn't use calendar years, I used city fiscal years. I could certainly prepare a separate chart for calendar years also. In fiscal 2021, it was about 20. In 2022, I think it was 57. In 2023, I believe the number was 133. And I'm currently sitting on, I think, 98 through February.
Okay, so the last bar graph there is from July 1 through present, I take it.
through present. So we still have 4 months left in the fiscal year. I anticipate we're going to end up around 150 or so.
Okay, but we're still less than half of the number of cases in New Haven.
Well, I think one of the things to acknowledge is that when you have additional outreach, there's probably also additional complaints, right? So when you have multiple interns who are doing more proactive outreach and people are encouraged to bring those complaints in, that they may become a vehicle for referrals to other places, whether that's a referral to services, a referral to other city departments or divisions. I think that's probably got to have at least account for some of that difference.
Okay, thank you. Understood. So last question, if I may. I think you answered this, but I must confess, we're having a little difficulty here with the sound system and understanding everything that you're saying. So,
sorry, I can speak louder too. I hope that's
I'm
not the
not
problem.
sure it's the loudness or if it's, yeah, it's just that, you know, we got these big speakers here and we're in a big echo chamber. So all the more reason why to co-chair's point, next meeting, let's have everybody right here in this room. It'll be a whole lot easier for all of us. But do I understand from Councilman Hernandez's question that moving your senior project manager up to full-time, you know, addressing these fair housing complaints on a full-time basis from where that person had been 60%, you feel is an efficient use of that person's time and is not going to negatively impact the rest of your department at this point in time?
So as I said, it's not just, there's no other excess capacity to handle those duties. So there really would need to be an allocation of an additional person to handle some of those other administrative tasks that she's handling regarding the Section 8 contract. And that person could certainly absorb other administrative activities as well. I can't move anything off of Diana's plate because I don't have any place to put it. But I do think that the amount of time that she has dedicated to fair rent complaints is not sufficient to address the number of complaints that we're receiving.
So are you making that business case and putting this into the upcoming budget?
If I could just jump in for a minute. One of the other issues within that department is that we have had, and I can't go into too many details because it involves personnel issues, but a position where we have not had someone there for probably 8 or 9 months that also had the same job title. So there's that. So there's a person that doesn't exist in the department as well as we speak.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Thank you, Mr. Strubin. Thank you, Randall, for, I can't see that far. Let me just ask my questions. Mr. Strub, you said that the commission hears like about 5 to 7 complaints per month?
That's how many we seek to put on the agenda. That's not always how many either end up on the agenda on a monthly basis, or how many, if they do end up on the agenda, could end up postponed if the tenant in particular is sick and unable to make it, or has transportation issues, or any other kind of malady that may occur. We do try to put that many on the agenda, and I think end up at something closer to 4 to 5.
And you only meet once a month?
The commission meets once a month on the 3rd Thursday of the month.
Okay. And how old is your oldest complaint? Or open complaint?
The oldest open complaint, I believe, is from October. So I think that there is that we may need to see some updating of this internal chart. But when I spoke with Diana just before the meeting, I believe the oldest complaint is dated October.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
When I spoke with Diana just before the meeting, she indicated the oldest complaint currently is October.
Did you hear how many?
October.
Okay, so we don't know how many.
Said October 2023.
October 2023 is the oldest complaints you have. How many
Is
of
the
those?
oldest outstanding.
That's outstanding. And how many of those in October 23 that's open?
So the number, I'd like to have her update this. It says that there's 13, 6 of which, so we had 19 complaints in October, 6 of which were dismissed or mediated, and 13 are not yet closed out. That doesn't mean that no one has reached out to them, just that they have not been finalized.
So, I mean, I'm looking at these numbers and you have about 6 to 9, cases backlog. You're only meeting 5 to 7, or possibly 5 to 7 cases, that or complaints you're looking per month. You only meet once a month. And the numbers are, you probably estimate for this fiscal year, maybe 150 or so, you may have cases. With even a full-time staff person, how would you get through and prevent this backlog?
The intention of the staff person is not to have the full commission handle more complaints. It's to have more complaints mediated or dismissed prior to reaching the commission.
So the staff person actually does behind the scenes some work on mediating and with the landlord tenants, and if that doesn't work, then it goes to the commission.
Correct. So when I was referring to the New Haven example, so they received 287 complaints in fiscal 23, and they seek to have no more than 4 complaints per meeting agenda, with the majority of those complaints dismissed or mediated prior to reaching the commission.
Okay. Does the Fair Rent Commission take in consideration the actual rent in the demographics of the neighborhood,
Yes.
as they're mediating?
They do.
They do, because as I'm hearing complaints of rents going up, $400 or $500 per month. If a complaint comes to you like that, somebody's been living there for the last, year or two, a 1-bedroom cold flat, what do you take in consideration, or what is taken in consideration?
So they're looking at rents from elsewhere in that neighborhood, as well as what's included in the rent, the condition of the building, and looking at comparable units when determining whether or not a rent is reasonable.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Shep. Councilman Hernandez?
Yes, I'd like to just make one comment. I'm still, I understand the request or the recommendation to at least deviate many of these complaints to be either whether it's dismissed or at least mediated so it doesn't get to the commission, so that it could help out the backlog a little bit here and there. I am concerned that we still have open cases from October 2023. I don't know the specifics of some of those, open cases, but I'm concerned that evictions, are probably in the happening or in process of, which brings a huge level of stress for families, when they know that their complaint, it's taking 3, 4, 5 months to be addressed, and they have a landlord possibly in the process of, eviction, and that is something that's, unacceptable. I understand the circumstances, but it is still unacceptable for our residents, to have to go through that process and have to wait, this long. And hence the reason why I assume that Councilwoman Rosado put this resolution on the floor, which is to address this and find ways to improve this. So I just wanted to make that statement, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Of course, I understand, and it's my goal to see these addressed much more quickly as well. Tenants are protected from retaliation from submitting a fair rent complaint for 6 months. And we do endeavor to have all of our complaints addressed within that 6-month period. Unfortunately, I can't create more hours in the day for staff members to be able to adjudicate these prior to getting to the commission or for the commission itself, which consists of community volunteers. We can certainly evaluate whether they have the capacity to meet more than once a month, but on a volunteer basis, I'm not sure that that's necessarily possible or feasible, but it's definitely something we can look into.
I also see that in your recommendation, looking for interns to possibly help you out, in the next couple of months or a year to really get this backlog down. This resolution is of interest to all the council members as they are really hearing, the concerns of the residents. So I am going to ask my fellow council person if they will keep this item on the in the committee, and over the next couple of what, I see you, Marilyn, give me 1 second. I'm going to leave it up, open up for discussion, is to talk to my council, the committee members, to again, leave this item open in the committee, and every month get an update from you on how we're doing. Because this issue is becoming extremely important, as the residents are, the mayor is making recommendation and making sure the landlords are accounted, making sure the upkeep of their building. So I think this goes hand in hand to see how that is working out. Before I go any further, I see Councilwoman Majority Leader Rossetti have her hands up. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Council President, and I want to thank my colleagues for putting this in. As I was listening and I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about, the last couple of years, and even Mr. Straub talking about things have changed, I think because things have changed, we can't do things the same. And because New Haven is a very different animal from us as far as housing stock, I don't feel that is the appropriate, I understand why you would call there, but I don't think that's like comparing apples to oranges. I think there's an urgency with this, and I think it needs to be reflected in what the actions are. And I just have to disagree just saying, well, there's not enough hours in the day. You're right, there's not enough hours in the day. And how are we going to do something about this? Because we've had people, it has changed. Look at the chart. If you go back to 2021 on your chart, there was no complaints. So what are we going to do? And that means you guys with us to make this different, to come at this in a different way, to make sure that there is more hours in the day, there are more people available, there is a way to see more cases, that we don't have a backlog to October. I don't know the answer to it, but I think what Council President just said, and again, I'm glad my colleagues, Councilwoman Rosado and Hernandez, did that, but how are we going to do this? Because I don't want to just come back next month and we're talking about backlog again. And I'm done. Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome, Majority Leader. It's not a matter of asking about coming back next month, but we need to get an update every month to see what changes Division Head Straub has put in place and how it's working. What we're getting ready to go into our budget process, in another month. Okay, so we really need to see what's working, what's not working, to listen to his recommendation and take that up also in the budget hearing time. But we also need to be kept abreast as council members, because we are hearing about the complaints. And we need to have something to say back to the residents in the city. So I'm going to ask my council members, my committee members, to make a motion.
Madam Chair?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Hi. So I totally agree with you. So, being the maker of this resolution, what I would like to do is follow through with your motion to keep it in committee, but I'd like to amend it, and I will do so, and then send it out to my council colleagues, where we can then, discharge it back to council. And one of the updates that we're going to do is to make sure on there that we put that they come and present to us, every month, because it is concerning, and I agree with Majority Leader Rossetti. These are our internal problems. When a resident comes in and fills out an application, they expect that it be handled immediately, right? And with all the housing issues that we're having, and I'm just going to talk specifically about the city of Hartford, we have a mayor that's promoting, housing and cracking down on landlords. And if your needs are not met, go to Greater Hartford Legal Aid. So we have to carry our part in having this Fair Rent Commission up to date, addressing these issues aggressively. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Rossetti. Go ahead, Councilman Gale.
So, hearing the chair's comments and the maker, Councilwoman Rosado's comments, and I hope this works for you, Councilwoman Rosado, I'm going to move to postpone this and keep it
Yes.
in this committee until the next meeting of this committee, and certainly at that time, in between now and then, any amendments, any changes that you circulate, we can certainly take up at that time and amend it in committee and otherwise process this. But the motion right now will be to postpone it till the next meeting of this committee.
I
Second
second.
the motion.
The motion is properly made in second. Any discussion? The only discussion I would like to make on this is to, including the staffing, Mr. Strupp, you know, one of the things I would like to see also, when you come back for your presentation next month, you said there was a vacancy. I think you had one vacancy, one tenant.
I'll
on the
let Mr.
commission.
Davis speak to that.
I'm sorry?
Actually, I spoke. It is not an open vacancy, but we have a position that there's not a person there. It's more of a technical issue that I don't want to, because it involves a personnel issue. So, which I don't really want to discuss here, but there's a person that we don't have to do the job for the last 8 or 9 months. It's a personnel issue though, currently.
So are we, and again, this is just open discussion, you know, on the motion. So you're
Yep.
saying there is an not an open vacancy. One of the members is in attendance, may not be in attendance all the time.
Correct. Correct. It's been for about 8 months now, I think.
I'm
so.
sorry? All right, I'm sorry. The hearing is not very well here. Hold on a second.
Oh,
I am so sorry. We were working on our understanding because of the, you know, the echo in this chamber. So there's a motion on the floor. It's been properly made second. Hearing no more discussion. Those in favor of postponing
Madam
this
Chair,
item?
Madam Chair, I had a quick question before we end the discussion.
Sure, go ahead.
And I apologize. So, Mr. Stroud, if I listen correctly, Diane Maldonado, which I would assume speaks Spanish?
Correct, Diana does speak Spanish.
Which is wonderful because, did I understand correctly that she tries to mediate as much as she can with landlords and tenants before? Is she the person that does that?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Okay, so again, we have a motion on the floor that's been properly made and second. Hearing and seeing no more discussion, those in favor of postponing this item to the next council meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The items will be postponed and look forward to seeing the Department of Housing and the DDS deputy or acting director. I'm not sure what you are, Randall, right now. Will visit us in person next month so we can avoid, you know, the echoing in the, you know, in the room. So thank you again for your presentation and look forward to seeing you and hearing next month. We have one more presentation in the committee, and I'm going to ask my co-chair, Councilman Gale, to talk about the next presentation.
Yes, thank you, Madam Co-Chair. This evening, we are pleased to have a report from Riverfront Recapture, and its Executive Director, Mike Zaleski, is here with us. Mike can fill in probably a little bit better the background on Riverfront itself better than I, but suffice it to say, Riverfront Recapture manages a substantial portion of land that is otherwise owned by the city of Hartford, land which extends from the Windsor border all the way down to the Charter Oak Landing, and has been in that position for many years now, probably more than 40 years at this point, and has done a spectacular job, but their work is not complete. It never is, and I think Mike is here tonight to give us an update as to where Riverfront Recapture is in 2024 and what their plans are looking forward. So with that, Mr. Zaleski, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir.
Housing Committee, it's my pleasure to be here this evening to talk about Riverfront Recapture, an organization that has been serving the city for several decades. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk about Riverfront. and both what we're currently doing in the park system, which includes 3 Hartford parks and 1 East Hartford park, but areas of expansion that we're looking at as we continue to move forward to connect people with the Connecticut River. Our mission is simple. It's connecting people with the Connecticut River. I'm having a little bit of trouble with the laptop, so I'm going to ask my colleague who's online, Martha Keneally, to share her screen if that's possible, so that I can jump into the, there we go. Thank you, Martha. Everybody see that? All right. So we are, as I mentioned, we're very proud to be a partner with the City of Hartford. We've been managing the 3 riverfront parks on the 3 riverfront Hartford municipal parks for more than 20 years now. We manage, slide please, more than 170 acres along the Connecticut River, 3.5 miles of interconnected river walk. We are a nonprofit organization that does this in partnership with the City of Hartford and the town of East Hartford. As I mentioned, our mission is simple, to connect people with the river, and we consider ourselves to not only be contributing to the quality of life of the city and the capital region, but also the economic development, prosperity, and economic revitalization of our region. We were fortunate several years ago to get some private funding to buy 60 additional acres of riverfront land on the Hartford-Windsor line, and we are moving forward on a park development project that will take place on that 60 acres plus an additional piece of state land. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Slide. Again, our mission, connecting people with the Connecticut River. Slide, please. We are happy that we count the number of people that participate with riverfront recapture and interact with our park system. And in 2023, we had more than 800,000 people some way interact with the riverfront recapture parks. That could be attending a public event, that could be participating in one of our programs, that could be launching a boat. We had more than 2,100 boat launches out of the 3 boat launches that are located in Riverside Park, Charter Oak Landing, and Great River Park across the river. Slide. I mentioned 1981 was the year we were founded. We were founded as a regional organization with a master plan to look at opportunities to reconnect with the river in Greater Hartford. So not necessarily just Hartford and East Hartford, but a Greater Hartford plan to include Wethersfield and Windsor. I'm happy to report that we're continuing to work on expansion to the north and connecting to the town of Windsor and Windsor Meadow State Park. But we're also working on a feasibility study to connect to Wethersfield. We'll get more into that in a moment as well. Next slide. Our parks. In the North Meadows, Riverside Park, which is the park with the boathouse. The picture of the boathouse, which is the lead slide. That is, as I mentioned, that has a boat launch as well as a couple of 100 acres of parkland. Mortenson Riverfront Plaza is the downtown signature park where the vast majority of our public events and cultural festivals takes place. Charter Oak Landing is the park in the South Meadows of the city on the Hartford side, and then Great River Park is on the East Hartford side. Next slide, please. Charter Oak Landing is a much more of a neighborhood park than the others. It is used by a number of fishermen and families for picnics and a lot of joggers, and gives you pretty great views looking back north to the downtown. The next park is Mortenson Riverfront Plaza, as mentioned, where a lot of our cultural festivals take place, right there in downtown. Riverside Park is where we run our riverfront rowing program. We're very proud of the riverfront rowing program. It is the second largest community rowing program in New England. It's based out of the Greater Hartford J.C.'s Community Boathouse, which just recently celebrated its 20th anniversary. It's a spot for recreation and sports. There's the Riverfront Tigers. Play on the cricket field in the meadow there, as well as a number of other sports activities. And then finally, Great River Park is our park on the East Hartford side, which is a linear park that extends from the Bulkley Bridge south to the Charter Oak Bridge. All of these parks are interconnected through a series of river walks, and we are continuing to work on that riverwalk system. We operate numerous programs and events. You'll see some of our on-water activities like rowing and dragon boats, and our adaptive kayak and canoe program, which we run out of Riverside Park. Next slide. But we also do a series of events that happen throughout the year. And I would encourage everyone to go to riverfront.org/events to take in all of the different 2024 events that we have scheduled. Our first real large public event is the Hartford Music Festival on June 22nd. And then there's a series of other signature events throughout the course of the year. The Food Truck Festival, July 18, 19, 20. The Taste of the Caribbean and Jerk Festival on August 3rd. The Riverfront Dragon Boat and Asian Festival 2 weeks later on August 17th. And then we culminate with the Head of the Riverfront Regatta, which is the largest regatta, largest single-day regatta in Connecticut. Attracts more than 10,000 people to the Connecticut River on that Sunday in October. In addition to that, we offer free fitness classes 5 days a week starting in June and running through the summer into the fall. The next slide, please. I'm really proud of the fact that we bring people to our riverfront parks for a variety of different purposes. There's always interesting things to do. I like this slide because it's nice and colorful. It provides an idea of the many different things that the organization does. We bring people to our riverfront park system, and we're proud of the fact that we're able to attract more than 800,000 people on an annual basis. Next slide. We are responsible for park operations through a management agreement with the city. We take care of all the park maintenance. We manage the parks, both public maintenance as well as public safety. So we have a Riverfront Ranger program that places Riverfront Rangers in our parks starting typically in late April, early May, and goes through essentially the end of October. With the significant increase in attendance and visitorship to our parks, we've seen the need to expand the role of those rangers. So where they used to be Memorial Day through Labor Day, we're now having them extend on each side of that timeline, just because we're seeing lots more people in our parks post-pandemic. Next slide. 2023 was a challenging year for flooding. There was a July flood that was the fourth time in 100 years that we had a July flood. It hit elevation 21, and so elevation 21 puts 6 feet of water in that boathouse that we saw on the first slide. It puts all of our parks underwater, and we were closed for several weeks. Flooding, that was a significant flood. We typically get an April or May flood, the spring flood, and then we're good for the rest of the year. We had a series of floods throughout the spring. We had this July flood, and then just because Mother Nature decided that we'd have another one before the end of the year, we had one in December 23 into January. I would note this weekend, we're going to go up to elevation 21 again, potentially 2021, which will put all of our parks underwater. It's been a raucous 18 months or so with flooding on the Connecticut River, and we continue to deal with the challenges. The water comes in and the water recedes, but what's left is a lot of debris, a lot of trees that have come down the river from Springfield, a lot of debris that's been deposited in the parks, and a lot of silt that ultimately ends up in the parks. So we clean up and we get the parks back open and we're ready to go. Next slide, please. Riverfront's budget is for the organization is about $3.2 million. The cost to maintain the parks is $1.4 million. So just a little bit less than half of our budget goes to operations in our park system. We are fortunate to receive a funding from the MDC to help maintain our park system. We get a $1.2 million grant from the MDC on an annual basis to maintain the Riverfront Park system, essentially a regional funding source for a regional park system. That 1.2 does not cover the entire cost of maintaining the parks. We get a contribution from the city, a CDBG grant of $145,000, and then a Town of East Hartford contribution, which gets us to the point of covering the maintenance of the parks. But obviously, we do so much more than just maintenance of the parks. So we go out and we raise funds from corporations, foundations, and individuals, as well as earning income through a number of different opportunities to complete our budget. I mentioned the flooding. The next slide, it was just a kind of an interesting, I thought it was interesting comparison. This is July of 2023. On the left, you'll see the flood waters came in and covered the Riverwalk area at the base of the stage canopy. The next photo in the middle is the water receding, and then the final photo is a day or two before the Riverfront Food Truck Festival on July 1920-ish, where we were able to get the park back in some sort of shape to be able to hold that food truck festival, which is one of our largest events and attracts people not only from the city, but throughout the region. Just quite a challenge in July of 2023. Next slide. So, park planning and development. We've got a number of projects that are ongoing, and I wanted to just touch on a couple of them quickly. The Joe Marfucci Riverwalk is a project that we're partnering with the City of Hartford, the Development Services and Planning Division to move this project forward. This is a 2.5-mile Riverwalk extension from the boathouse in Riverside Park all the way to Riverfront's new property on the Hartford-Windsor line. Several years ago, the City Council passed a resolution to name this new Riverwalk in honor of my predecessor, Joe Marfucci, a man who spent 28 years with the organization, putting blood, sweat, and tears into building the Riverfront Park system and rebuilding the access to public space along the Connecticut River. So we're thrilled to be able to move this project forward in partnership with the city to be able to make this a destination for so many. The Riverwalk will not just be a path from one point to another. We are going to be putting in some educational exhibits and telling the history of the Connecticut River and the greater Hartford region. We think this will be an opportunity where it's a 2.5-mile trek, so you probably could walk it in 20 to 30 minutes, but if you spend some time actually learning about the Connecticut River and the history, we're hoping it'll take you a little bit longer and you'll get something, you'll have an educational experience. So that is a project that we hope it's in final design, and we're going through some permit issues. We're hopeful that we can get shovels in the ground on that project in the next 12 to 18 months or so. That'll be a relatively quick build once we actually get all of the approvals. And then when you get to the end of the Joe Marfucci Riverwalk, we're building a new park. It is, this is an aerial view of the 60 acres or so. In the foreground is 17 acres of state property, and then the 60 acres that was purchased is on the other side of that access road. That's riverfront property that was purchased in September of 2019 with a grant from the Richard P. Garmany Fund at the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. Next slide. We've got some big plans for this new space. The aerial in the upper left-hand corner is sort of the other view, so you get a better sense of the riverfront property in the center there. We're working with Hargreaves Jones, a nationally renowned landscape architecture firm, to put together a master plan for this new space. We believe that this is an opportunity to not only continue connecting people with the Connecticut River, but give the residents of the northeast part of the city an opportunity to connect with the river. There are not a lot of opportunities to connect with the Connecticut River in the northern part of the city. So opening up this, what was privately owned space and currently is a brownfield, we believe that we're going to provide access that is sorely needed within that part of the city. We're really excited about this opportunity. Next slide, please. We've held a series of community workshops and community surveys to ask the citizens of the city and the region about what they want to see in this new space. We've heard lots of different ideas for what should go into this space. We are excited to be working with not only the city of Hartford, but the town of Windsor as this land crosses over into the town of Windsor. And we are really excited about the opportunity to build something that feels like it's welcoming to all in this part of the city. This is so a series of community workshops have taken place. The next community walk is March 16th. I'm thrilled that several council members have already taken that walk. If you have not, I would encourage you to either come out on March 16th at 10 a.m. or reach out to me, and I'd be happy to give you a tour of the property. You genuinely have to see it. The council president will confirm that you genuinely have to see it. It's quite a space. Next slide, please. This is just one concept of what this new park might look like. This would be Garmany Cove if we were to go down this route. Perhaps a canoe and kayak or a paddle sports type opportunity. Perhaps some walking trails throughout the parcel. Perhaps some pavilions or other structures that might be on the space. We're currently looking at 3 different concepts, and those concepts were vetted at the community workshop that just took place last Saturday at the West Indian Social Club. So we're really excited about the opportunity to take the input that we received on Saturday and put it into the new conceptual plan. Next slide, please. This is just I wanted to share this. This is sort of the idea that we've the working model that we've gone into this park planning process with. A lot of this is about fostering physical and mental health, and I mentioned we want this park to be part of the community. This is a space that not many people have walked on in the last 40, 50 years because it's been privately owned, and there's a big no trespassing sign right out front. So it's an opportunity for us to not only increase economic development within the area because we think this will be a draw, but improve quality of life. And we think that this is, a way to not only enhance the habitat of the Connecticut River riverbank, but also have people fully appreciate what we have here in the city of Hartford in the Connecticut River. Because at the moment, our parks are wonderful, but it's challenging. Some of them are challenging to get to. You don't just stumble upon our current parks. You have to be, going there as a destination on a bike or in a vehicle. This is the type of park where you'll be able to walk up to the water or walk up to the cove. So we're really excited about that. Next slide, please. This is just a concept of what this might look like. I wanted to point out that in the upper left-hand corner there is about 10 acres of potential commercial development. I mentioned this is a brownfield. When we dig this cove, and we'll be digging the cove as part of the remedial action plan to rectify the brownfield, we'll be taking that soil and bringing it up towards the train tracks and taking that land out of the floodplain. Once we take that land out of the floodplain, we will be able to build a commercial development. And that might mean housing, that might mean some sort of restaurant or other kind of destination retail. It may mean some sort of banquet venue. It may, basically we're gonna figure out what might be appropriate for that space in the northeast part of the city. So really exciting opportunity to build 10 acres of commercial development directly adjacent to a green space. I believe that I just got one more slide. So that's our new park project. We're working on a number of other projects. I mentioned Wethersfield. Unfortunately, I don't have the slide of the map, but we're currently working in partnership with the City of Hartford and the town of Wethersfield to do a feasibility study with VHB, a local engineering firm, to look at how we can get from Charter Oak Landing to Old Wethersfield. There are multiple different ways we can get to Old Wethersfield. What the engineering firm the study will tell us is the optimal ways to get that done and to get that done as quickly as possible. Ideally, we'd be able to continue along the river, and I think there are sections that we will be able to continue along the river. There's a large trash-to-energy plant that is currently located just south of Charter Oak Landing, which is going through its own process. So we're certainly paying attention to that and hopeful that at some point we'll be able to get through that space and then connect along the dike as it continues south towards Old Weathersfield. But there are multiple other different ways. So that study is taking place now. The planning department at the city has been wonderful. The planning department in Weathersfield, it's really a team effort to try and move this all forward so that we can come up with something. And then ultimately it'll be our responsibility collectively to get that new Riverwalk system, that new multimodal trail done. In addition to that, we've got some funding to do some improvements at Charter Oak Landing on the wharf and some other infrastructure there. We're working on park wireless and camera network for the park system. We're looking to replace our floating docks in Riverside Park, and we're very pleased that the mayor's office greenlighted some funding to replace the elevators at Mortensen Riverfront Plaza. These are elevators that are 20+ years old. They were, when the ribbon was cut on Mortensen Riverfront Plaza a couple of decades ago. These elevators, which are primarily indoor elevators, they've served our park well, but they need to be replaced. So the mayor's office was able to allocate some funds to be able to get, some park funds to be able to get those replaced. So we're looking forward to getting that done in 2024. And then finally, we continue to partner with IQUILT and the Hartford 400 project about Riverlink. For those of you who unfortunately I had a slide on my thumb drive, Riverlink is that is an attempt to replace the DOT structure over I-91 off of Market Street. It is an unforgiving concrete structure that doesn't necessarily welcome people into Riverside Park. It's utilitarian. It does indeed get you over the highway and into Riverside Park and back. But the thinking is that that could be a much more attractive and useful bridge that would go over I-91 and make it easier for people who are in the downtown, north downtown Clay Arsenal area to make their way across. And it's obvious it's part of a larger interconnected trail system that IQUILT is pushing forward. So with that, that's my last slide. I will thank you, Martha, for sharing the screen. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Oh, Mrs. Zielinski, are you the gentleman that gave me the tour when you bought the piece of property by
Yes.
Windsor? Jeez. Okay, think memory.
It was a beautiful sunny day, I remember, and you were, I believe you thought you were coming to tour a couple of acres of parkland, and we ended up showing you 70+ acres.
Thank you for that memory. Councilman Hernandez?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this very comprehensive presentation. I have one statement and two questions. I'll be very, very quick. My first statement is, so my father, he lives in Puerto Rico. He comes to visit me once or twice a year, and there's one thing that's always on his agenda, always, which is to park at the boathouse, walk all the way down to Charter Oak Bridge, cross it, go up East Hartford, take Route 2, cross it, go back to the boathouse. It's exactly 3.12 miles.
Yes.
About.
Yeah.
I just looked up because I have the dashboard here of all my walks. I love to walk. So I looked up exactly, it's about 3.12 miles to do that letter. It's like a lowercase b, you know?
Yes.
And we always do that. And that's his favorite thing to do when he comes to visit me. And if he comes in wintertime, he wants to do it in wintertime, which is like, come on, man. But we do it. So we love it. So I appreciate, all the work that you guys do. It does provide for me and my father to have that moment that we cherish every single year.
There's something about being around water that is, it's just calming and healing, and I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
And question, that commercial section that you mentioned towards the end of the presentation on that 10 acre, is that still on the Hartford side of it? I just wanted to double check.
Sure.
Is that still on the Hartford side of
So
the development?
the 10 acres, and it might actually be more. The 10 acres currently, it's about 94, 95% Hartford and about 6% Windsor. If we continue that commercial development to the north a bit, it would be a certain portion of that would be more in Windsor than otherwise.
Okay. And then my next question is, somehow I didn't know nothing about March 16. Can you remind me exactly what's going on March 16?
So on March 16th, we will be doing a tour of the property. So we will, what we're doing is inviting the public to come out. It's about an hour and a half or so. My hope is that it's going to be a beautiful spring morning, hopefully 60 degrees and sunny. Our entire park system does flood, so the water rising at the moment concerns me a little bit about that, but we should be able to get that tour in. We're hopeful. We're going to spend the next 3 to 5 or 6 months or so continuing to provide these tours, showing up at public events, having a table at our public events, because we genuinely want people to tell us what they think should be there. We don't want to just build something and then welcome the public. We want the public to actually share that they want to see a place where they can walk or where they can potentially rent a kayak or get out on the water. This cove is going to be a really interesting opportunity for us to connect people directly with the water. The rivers, and Councilman Gale will tell you, the river is a strong current, and it is
has done and continues to do. With respect to the, I guess you don't have a name yet. It says Future Park, right? For the North Meadows.
correct.
So whatever that name becomes, I take it that because you've mentioned several times that this includes land from Windsor, but I believe isn't the ultimate plan to actually continue a walking path into Windsor?
Correct.
And farther north?
So the Joe Marfucci Riverwalk will reach Riverfront's new property and connect with the existing Windsor Meadow State Park. We were fortunate to get a Community Investment Fund grant to build a bridge across Deckers Brook, which would be the north side of the property on the state land. The existing grant will build the bridge across Meadowbrook. So our property and the state property are, the north and south borders are Meadowbrook, which is a significant, is a man-made channel that helps get stormwater into the northeast part of the city out to the Connecticut River, and then Deckers Brook, which winds its way around Windsor Meadow State Park. So there'll be bridges on both sides of our property to be able to continue that Riverwalk into Windsor, and then the town of Windsor is currently working on a project to connect to Windsor Center. So think about, when that's done, you could start in Windsor Center, make your way south, all the way through Hartford, stop at a couple of parks, stop in Riverside Park and maybe in downtown, and continue on to Weathersfield when we get that work done as well.
I see Councilman Hernandez's father taking a longer and
It's going to be
different
a long walk.
So in terms of feedback, I know you asked the public for their feedback. I'm a member of the public and on the Hartford City Council, in fact. So I will tell you that everything that I've seen so far, I love with respect to this future park. In particular, I encourage the development of a restaurant there. I think, having those types of activities on our riverfront really takes even greater advantage. We've done wonderful things with bringing people recreationally to the riverfront, but there are those that can't enjoy recreation as much, and there are just other activities in life, like sitting down to dinner and looking at this beautiful view. So I certainly encourage the development of a restaurant, and if you compare it up with some housing, there's nothing that I've advocated more than lots of housing along the Connecticut River. So if you can do that, I'm fully supportive of both of those ideas. I mentioned at the beginning, and you mentioned it as well, that Riverfront operates all of this land under a management agreement with the city of Hartford. And that management agreement has a term limit on it, if I'm not mistaken, and periodically comes up for renewal.
Yes.
Do you know when it's next coming up for renewal?
December 31st, 2023.
So it's past.
The management agreement, there's a 5-year renewal that is included, and we are currently in discussions with the mayor's office to get that renewal underway, which is not, it is, these are continuing conversations, obviously, with the new administration. We've picked up those conversations, but it's not a concern for this organization, as we have a firm commitment from the city to continue. We have this 5-year renewal. It's more a scheduling opportunity. There are some things that we, moving forward into the next 5 years, that we want to continue this strong partnership. We also want to make sure that that the organization is strong. So we're continuing in those conversations, and I'm sure it'll get resolved in the next couple of months. But it's not something that we're terribly concerned about.
So, well, wish you tremendous luck with your conversations with the mayor's office, and I look forward to seeing the management agreement come back to council, because I know we will have to approve it at that point in time. In terms of other parts of the river, and looking back towards Charter Oak Landing and what you mentioned, ideas of connecting to Weathersfield even, I believe that there is now a 5-member task force, or I'm not sure what the correct name of it is, but there are 5 appointees from Hartford who are working with MIRA on the decommissioning of that plant. And I think if I have my druthers in particular, they're looking to make sure that MIRA saves as much money as possible to use it to clean up the property and to redevelopment. And can I assume that Riverfront knows all these 5 people and is in conversation with them?
So, yes, certainly paying attention to that process, because it is a prominent structure on the Connecticut River, and there is a decision was made that it would no longer be a trash to energy plant. So the hope is that we can put it to some good community use. For many, many, many years, this has been a space that has been, while it served a regional purpose, hasn't necessarily had a significant, that doesn't provide an opportunity for people to get to the Connecticut River. So I think there's an opportunity with that group to put in place a plan to return that space, return access to the river in that space. And we've had conversations. Senator from Farr is a member of that committee, as well as a couple of others that we know. We've been pretty clear about what the opportunity to connect this Riverwalk through, and how it could provide a off-road opportunity to continue along south. At the moment, if we are unable to get through that trash to energy plant, we would have to get out onto the road, onto Reserve Road, and then move through the South Meadows from there, eventually getting back onto the river. So that's we're working with a consultant to look at all the options. Continuing along the river would be one option, I would think.
Well, again, as one member of the public, let me express my very strong desire that you continue along the river and get access to the riverfront in front of that power plant, and would look forward, as we just mentioned, on the north side, would look forward to some development down there that might include retail, restaurant, and housing, so we can better utilize this beautiful river and the beautiful views that we have. And I'll just take the opportunity to mention a few other things that I would love to see on the river that I know have at different times been in Riverfront's agenda, and some have come, some have gone, but hopefully some will come back again. Tour boats.
Yes.
I know we've had 1 or 2 tour boats. I don't know if we had any last summer, but certainly would love to see the ability for people to get on a tour boat, afternoon, evening cruise from downtown. New Haven has done a remarkable job, apparently, with these food truck park that they have right on their their Long Island Sound front. I know that Riverfront installed electricity, massive amounts of electricity at the Charter Oak Landing so that food trucks could plug in. So would dearly love to see potentially little food trucks on a routine basis as opposed to, once a year festival. Would love to see the ability for people to go down to Charter Oak Landing, not only fish and walk, but catch one of the diverse delights that that can be found in Hartford with food trucks from pallets from all over the world. Along the same lines, and you and I have had many conversations about this in the downtown area, trying to get some sort of a floating restaurant or some sort of commercial endeavor, so that when you're at these events or when you're just walking there or whatever, in the evening time when there's very few people there, other people could be there and enjoy the beauty of the Connecticut River. So I'll leave you with those thoughts. And last thought is just making sure that any boaters that come up and down the river have the ability to stop at the parks. So the dock at Mortensen being open to boaters, and if you manage, when you manage to develop that north, if there's a restaurant, it'd be real nice to have a dock there, so one or two people could get there from the river.
Yes, boat traffic is something that we continue to monitor. It is, as you know, Councilman, can be much more challenging once you get past the Founder's Bridge to navigate the Connecticut River. There are areas that are remarkably shallow, which does not lend itself to larger power boats. There is, what we try to be as accommodating as possible to boat traffic. You'll see for the Taste of the Caribbean or the Food Truck Festival, sometimes 4, 5, 6 boats that dock outside, or maybe a concert outside of Mortensen Riverfront Plaza. There's I sense some momentum, some building momentum with additional people being out. People are looking for outdoor opportunities. It's part of the reason our parks and other city parks and state parks have been so busy during the pandemic and post-pandemic, is because of the need to be outside. So we're going to continue to look at all of those opportunities. In terms of the property to the north, we see that as an opportunity to do a variety of different things, and that cove will be. We believe that cove will be able to be used for lots of different types of boats, but we'll certainly bring that back to the landscape architect. Your desire to see some sort of dock.
I believe I've seen Council Majority Leader Rossetti's hand has been up.
Thank you, Council President. Mr. Zaleski, thank you for the work that you do. I know how hard it is to run a nonprofit, and kudos to you. Also, thank you, God, I don't even know, was it last year or the year before, for the tour around the potential cove, or whatever we're going to call it, or whatever it's going to be. My concern, and you continue and your team to look at the diversity of your events. But as a city, it's exciting times, and I know you're listening to folks, and you continue to do, the things that you need to do to hear people. But I just want to always say that, but I'm also very excited about what's ahead, and I thank all of you. I see Martha on here, all of your team. I know how hard you all work. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We take in community engagement, not just for this new park, but with our existing parks seriously, because these are city parks. People should feel welcome in these parks. They are, as I mentioned, you don't just stumble upon Riverside Park. It's walled off by a dike and a highway and a set of train tracks. But when you see people actually, enjoy the park, enjoy being able to have a picnic along the river, that's what we want to encourage. That's what we want to, people, this is a river city. People who live in the city should appreciate the fact that it is that is an important part of the city and take advantage of these great parks that we have. Thank you.
Thanks, Majority Leader. Mrs. Zielinski, I think we are aging, because this was about maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years, when you first got the land over by Windsor, Hartford line, and we talked about
Yes.
partnershiping with the Friends of Keene.
Yes.
Then I saw the grant came in for that partnership with a walk, so lots of things we spoke about is actually coming to fruition. It was a my time, I went for a short tour, didn't end up to be a short tour, but it was really interesting with that new piece of land that came aboard. So congratulations on working with the Friends of Keene.
Thank you.
One of the questions that we wanted to talk to you about, as our mayor is going with a, sports and recreation department, how was your rowing program? If you could tie that into those programs, getting our youth, on the water.
Sure.
Would be great. So I don't know how many of our Hartford youth participate in your rowing program.
Sure. So we, as part of our management agreement, any high school youth who goes to a Hartford high school or an East Hartford high school rows for free in our riverfront rowing program. So if we are, this spring session, we have 54 youth rowing in our program. I believe there's between 6 and 8 Hartford residents, and they are Hartford high school students. We continually look for ways to get Hartford and East Hartford youth involved in our riverfront rowing program, because it's a sport that is not necessarily one that your average kid thinks about. So, but it provides for all sorts of opportunities. There's a certain, being part of a rowing team, you learn all sorts of teamwork skills and leadership and communication, and we are very interested in seeing how we can work with the new department to be a better, we consider ourselves to be another option for kids in the city. We're also working with some of the middle schools to try and start kids earlier, because if you don't learn about rowing early enough, you get, perhaps soccer or baseball or basketball becomes your thing, and you don't necessarily give it a chance. So we're trying to encourage kids to get started earlier. But I do think there's an opportunity there to grow our youth program. We're very proud of our rowing program. The city should be proud of the fact that it has a wonderful boathouse located in Riverside Park that is active and used by so many, and we're looking at how we can continue to grow that program.
Well, thank you for saying that. I know, if you learn how to row, going into college, you get some nice little grants.
There's some decent scholarships available.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So this is a great opportunity. It's not just a basketball and football scholarship. This is and so I'm hoping that, when the new director for that division comes on board, a partnership will be greatly developed.
I agree.
Because I think some of our kids don't think about that possibility of scholarships and grants for rowing. The only other, again, I've been on your tour. I use the riverfront. I go to the Caribbean Festival. I go to the Dragon Boat Festival. So I go to the Charter Oak. So I don't do the walk as Councilman Amanda's father, and he does, but, we have enjoyed the riverfront, and it's wonderful to have that, and I want to thank you so very much for all the hard work, because, I remember a year ago, we were lobbying MDC to maintain the funding, right, Councilman Gale? Remember those lobbying for that?
Yes.
So I'm glad that it's working out well now.
I am pleased to report that that the MDC funding is a little bit more stable these days because of, I think the commissioners have a better understanding of what Riverfront is doing, and we have a number of commissioners who are both friends of the organization, friends of the city and the town, and recognize the important contribution that the MDC makes. As the MDC CEO said, the Clean Water Project, if you want to see the results of the Clean Water Project, go into the riverfront parks.
Yeah.
Because the river has seen dramatic increases in its health over the past 10 plus years as a result of the Clean Water Project. So, perfect example of the benefit of that investment is coming down to the riverfront parks.
Great. That's great to hear. And this is one last thing I would leave you with. When I looked at your board members, I see a few names, I recognize.
Yes.
But would like to ask you for more opportunities, for Hartford residents, especially, as you go into the Clay Arsenal northeast section of town, because that's a development that I think that partnership really will help you with. So if I meet, as you notice, you've been here all evening with us. I want to thank you for coming. And as you notice, we're certainly, I think Mr. Chance is still with us. And so people like that who are still, we have great people in the city who wants to give back.
And one of the things that we've benefited from in starting this community engagement process is continuing to meet some of the community leaders in the northeast part of the city who have gotten very involved in our park project and want to see it be the best that it can be. So I certainly appreciate that,
Sure.
and we'll keep that in mind as we move forward.
Looking forward to working with you and getting you some recommendation.
I'm looking forward to cutting some ribbons in partnership with the city as we open riverwalks and parks.
That'd be awesome. Let us know. I don't think I'm going to join you on the 16th tour, but I'm sure Councilman Hernandez will probably join you. If there is no other questions or discussion, seeing and hearing none, I am going to call this meeting to adjourn. Thank you so very much for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
Who stayed on? Oh, Mr. Chase stayed through the whole meeting. That's wonderful. Meeting is adjourned. Wow, we can't believe he did. I looked up and he was there.